So next question says, which of the following are automatic stabilizers? Check all that apply. Number one, in response to the 2008 recession, Congress approved billions of dollars of additional spending on public infrastructure projects. Number two, a corporate profits rise during economic expansion causes corporate income tax revenue to rise. Number three, as people earn higher incomes during the expansion, the progressive tax system requires them to pay higher average tax rates. Number four, in 1968, Congress enacted a temporary 10% increase in personal income taxes in response to an inflationary GDP gap. And so the question here is really asking us first, what is an automatic stabilizer? And so automatic stabilizers are policies that basically function as buffers for the economy to reduce any fluctuations in either direction. Either if the economy is growing too slowly, there would be an automatic stabilizer to kind of, you know, keep the economy moving a little bit faster than it would otherwise. And on the other hand, if the economy is expanding too fast, an automatic stabilizer is going to, again, automatically reduce kind of the rate of growth for that economy in some way. And so this is really contrasted against discretionary policies. And so discretionary policies are policies in which Congress or some government body is reacting to some sort of scenario and like going through a very pointed process of passing a policy in order to affect some kind of change. And so the big difference here is automatic versus discretionary. One is without any kind of process required, it automatically happens. And the other is it requires some sort of action by some sort of government party. So taking a look at these answer choices, we can classify each one as either yes, an automatic stabilizer, or no. So number one says in response to the 2008 recession. In that sense, we should already be thinking this is going to be discretionary because it's in response to a certain scenario. Congress approved billions of dollars of additional spending on public infrastructure projects. And so again, we would not call this an automatic stabilizer because it did not happen by itself. It required action by Congress in order to occur. And so it's not going to be what we consider an automatic stabilizer. Number two says a corporate profits rise when corporate profits rise during economic expansion, corporate income tax revenue rises. And so automatic stabilizer. So I think in some senses, yes, because when you so it depends on if the tax scales in the same way it doesn't for question three, because if corporate profits rise during economic expansion, if the corporate income tax were to stay at the same flat rate, I'm not sure how that would necessarily slow down the economy, right? But if we were to say that as corporate profits rise during economic expansion and corporate income tax revenues were to scale automatically in the way that is currently structured, so that the profits are taxed at a higher rate as they increase, then that would be an example of an automatic stabilizer because it is a existing structure that slows down the economy the more profits are. And so that would be one that I would hesitantly check depending on how corporate income tax is structured. Three is one that I would definitely check as an automatic stabilizer. As people earn higher incomes during the expansion, the progressive tax system requires them to pay higher average tax rates. And so this is an example of where during a rapidly growing economy that is probably in an expansionary gap, the progressive tax system is going to effectively cause people to pay more of their money as a percentage in taxes, which would reduce the amount of disposable income they have to spend in the economy. And so that is something that would slow down the economy and would act as a buffer for in the event of an expansionary gap. And so number three is something that is an example of an automatic stabilizer. Number four says, in 1968, Congress enacted, and so again, we're thinking discretionary because Congress had to do something. So Congress enacted a temporary 10% increase in personal income tax rates in response to an inflationary GDP gap. And again, this is going to be discretionary, not automatic, and so we're not going to pick four. So let's take a look at the answers given by the previous tutor. Number one says approval of billions of dollars spent on public expenditure is not an automatic stabilizer as it is being made by governments for specifically combating the recession. So it's not working automatically here. So yeah, that's a good answer. Number 2 says this is an example of the automatic stabilization. Corporate earnings increased during expansion, and tax paid by the government also increased. On the other hand, during recession, earnings of corporations decrease and they start paying less taxes. So I want to add my addendum for that real quickly because I'm not sure if having a flat tax rate would really decrease, kind of slow down the economy. This depends a bit on the structure of the corporate tax rate, i.e. whether it's a flat tax or a progressive tax like income tax. If the tax were to be a flat tax, regardless of profit levels, it's not clear how this tax would act as a stabilizer to slow down the economy in the event of an expansionary gap. Merely having higher government tax revenue would not act as a buffer because it doesn't change the proportionate tax burden in the non-expansionary versus expansionary scenario. So that's kind of a clarification for number 2, just ensuring that, we don't want to mislead anybody and say that it's definitely the case that it's an automatic stabilizer. Number 3 says, it is also an example of an automatic stabilizer. People pay more taxes during the boom and less taxes during the recession. And so that is the case. Again, keeping in mind that it is not the amount of the tax that is necessarily the case, but the proportion of their income as tax. That is more so the case. And that is going to be more of the automatic stabilizer. And 4 says this is not an automatic stabilizer. During the inflation, people are subject to more tax to tame down inflationary pressure. So, I mean, it is not an automatic stabilizer. I don't think it has to do with I don't think this is an issue of whether or not they're subject to more tax. It's more so this is not an automatic stabilizer because it is a policy that required action by Congress, i.e. discretionary. And so that's going to be the reason. So we're not going to mark this as incorrect. I think the answers given are sufficient, but I think the explanations for 2 and 4 are a little bit off. So we're going to include our 2 addendums to this and make sure that this is fully answered in the answers choices.